for our masterclass, which is leadership through Toastmaster. Anne Flint was the past district director, has been a past area director, past club president of Forum. In terms of mentorship, I cannot count how many people Ian has actually mentored, and he's still doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Anne Flint, distinguished Toastmaster.
Madam Toastmaster, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It was the American war hero, General Douglas MacArthur, who said, "A true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. He does not set out to be a leader, but becomes one by the equality of his actions and the integrity of his intent." Why do we join Toastmasters International? As we've heard from our previous speaker, to improve communication skills, to improve our self-confidence in being able to stand in front of a lectern and deliver a speech, and of course, improved leadership skills. So what I'm going to be sharing with you in the time available with you this evening, and picking up from our last speaker, is some experience together with some personal anecdotes that have worked for me in what I believe is the most undersold benefit of Toastmastering, and that is what I call, and what Frank referred to, the practical leadership training opportunity. Now, to begin, however, I think we need to understand that there is a difference between leadership and management. And leaders, in simple terms, create a vision, whilst managers create goals. In simple terms, managers are paid to do a job, whilst leaders inspire others to do that same job. In Toastmasters, the club, the area, the division, and the district, the most important goals are, I believe, already in place on the system. But it's the leader who has the responsibility through Toastmasters of achieving these particular goals. Now, we all need ideas and lateral thinking, which we do get from our members within Toastmasters, and that's important. But we don't really have to reinvent the wheel. The Toastmasters organization is nearly 100 years old, and the educational system, although changes are made periodically to adapt the current conditions, like, for example, Pathways, which has just been introduced, the Toastmasters International tools and the manuals through Pathways, as well as the individual job responsibilities are given to you when chosen to perform a particular task or leadership role. So, if you are chosen to serve that leadership role, the district provides you with annual leadership training with all the tools necessary to achieve those goals. Now, I was privileged to serve in the inaugural chairman of the District 74 Toastmasters Leadership Institute. This is an advanced training mechanism of leadership skills training within Toastmasters that few of our members support, acknowledge, or in fact even know about. And in fact, it's our own Andrew Tsuro who is serving currently as the chairman of that organization. Now, we also need to understand that the implementation, the application, and also the interpretation of leadership responsibilities, though, hang solely on the culture, on the social standing, and on the current club health at the time. The club status, for example, your club status last year and 10 years ago are decidedly different to the status and conditions today, as they will be next year and the year after that. Members come and members leave. That's part of the game. Right now, as you've referred to, Madam Toastmaster, we're living through an unprecedented leadership responsibility in achieving our goals under the so-called COVID-19 lockdown. So I guess in order to accomplish one's success in business, in our daily lives, and of course also in Toastmastering, some investigation needs to take place, some understanding of what leadership is about. We need to know a little about what leadership is, and I guess what it means. Now, it has been documented that there, I think, are 7 primary leadership styles. There's an autocratic style, there's an authoritative style, there's a pace-setting style, there's a democratic style, there's a coaching style, there's an affiliative style, and there's a laissez-faire as it comes style. So we have the autocratic on the one side, and we have laissez-faire on the other. Now, MBAs and PhDs and all these learned individuals have formed studies on these different leadership styles and these qualities over the years. As we heard earlier, transactional to servant to value-based leadership skills have all been developed and documented. But in simple terms, however, knowing which of the leadership styles work best for you, I think, is part of a successful leader. One needs to identify what your dominant leadership style is. You could easily ask your colleagues for their opinion, whether or not you'll get a good representation of that, I'm not so sure. But in order to illustrate this, let me share an anecdote with you. The acclaimed author of a book that sold, I think, some 13 million copies, called The 1 Minute Manager, was written by a gentleman by the name of Ken Blanchard. Now, I was fortunate enough to share a lunch date with him at a Toastmasters International Convention in Las Vegas in the USA. He had just been awarded the Golden Gavel Award in the year 1992, and his message in his address dealt with his interpretation of what he called situational leadership. And that model is that there is no single best style of leadership. He said that effective leadership is task relevant, and the most successful leaders are those who adapt their leadership style to the performance readiness of the individual or group they are attempting to lead or influence. Again, another practical anecdote, and some of you have heard this story before, but I think it pertains to my message this evening. The year was 1984. The venue was the German Club in central Pretoria. Following 3 months of initial visits to the Toastmasters Club, I eventually decided to sign on the dotted line that suggested that I was now a member of the Forum Toastmasters Club. And yes, Mr. Tiro, 2 years later, past President Adrian Spruit called me and asked me if I would be prepared to serve in the position of Vice President Education. Of course, I had no idea what that in fact meant. Suffice to say that it sounded good, so why not? Dolph Kessner, the district governor at the time, inaugurated me as a club president a year later, and I was fortunate enough to follow a great model in the form of President Will Barker. And because over and above the manuals which we received from International, copious handwritten notes were passed on to me. Remember, we had no cell phones, we had no laptops and the like at the time, nothing like the technology we're sharing here this evening. In those days, of course, the post office worked rather efficiently. In my presidential year, I might add, I think I hosted 13 EXCO meetings and had 100% attendance at each one of those. I learnt that in chairing a business meeting within Forum, the chairman could ask the sergeant to remove a rowdy member from that particular meeting and take him outside the room. That particular individual did a speech here this evening, and he, would you believe, is a councillor today. Now, I moved on to achieve the Divisional Governor of the Year award, and then won the Administrative Award as Lieutenant Governor Marketing, and then finally as District Governor gained President's Distinguished Status. Now, this has only been achieved on 2 occasions in the history of District 74. Now, whilst these achievements seemed great at the time for me, the club, the area, the division and the district, it was the practical leadership experience for me, as well as the fellow members of the club, the area, the division and the district that benefited. I might just add though that the practical training is great for you as an individual, but does place challenges on your marriage. But it was Peter Drucker that said, leadership is not rank, privileges, title, or money. It's responsibility. And I think this point holds true in any Toastmasters leadership position. Those who follow the leadership track for personal glory invariably fall by the wayside. It was Donald Walters who said, leadership is an opportunity to serve. It is not a trumpet call, Mr. Nkonzo, to self-importance. So how then did I achieve these successes? Well, firstly, it was not me, although I played the leadership role. None of these successes would have played out had it not been for my fellow team member at the time being part of those responsibility roles. Yes, model role players, which we've heard about in the past, in those ahead of me, past President and Area Governor Adrian Spruit, past President and Area Governor Will Barker. I think of Dolph Kessner, past District Governor and Distinguished Toastmaster, and past District Governor Howard Steinberg, who were all ahead of me, were my greatest motivation. Dolph Kessner, who some of you might remember, Kessie as he's affectionately known, for me was huge. Not necessarily in stature, although that has changed somewhat of late, but in voice, with an infectious laugh and with writing skills that were unmatched at the time. And I believe Dolph Kessner single-handedly changed the emphasis of the leadership challenge within District 74 in the late 80s and the early 90s. I guess I believe too in the adage that great leaders don't tell you what to do, they show you how it is done. And in conclusion, I guess my greatest achievement, strangely enough, was to provide encouragement, as we heard from Frank earlier, to a gentleman from Ireland by the name of Ted Corcoran. Now, I met him in a bar at the Toastmasters convention in San Diego, and he was inspired by my district governor success story. And he, being the speech contestant at the conference, representing his district, District 72, which I think is England and that of Ireland, he maintained that he would never make a success of the leadership track. I replied by saying, you know, I had similar thoughts back in the day, so I challenged him there and then to pursue just that. Ted went on to become the international president of Toastmasters International in the year 2003. And he still to this day acknowledges me, of all people, publicly, that I was his greatest motivation to achieving his leadership success. Amazing the influence a few beers can have. Now, the most influential team member motivation that worked for me as a leader, I believe, too, revolved around the personal interaction through praise and gratification of one's fellow team member. If you perform this, preferably in public, as well as in my case, I have an A4 lever arch file full of copy letters, hand typed with 2 fingers and still in my filing cabinet that bears witness to all the letters of thanks to the team members' contribution on my team in my capacity as district and divisional governor at the time. So ladies and gentlemen, whether you can associate, for example, with the politician Winston Churchill, when he said that tact is the ability to tell someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip, or adapt, for example, the Oxford Leadership Academy theory that reads, in leadership, character is more important than strategy. Leadership is a personal journey. So I abided by the adage that respect is earned, honesty is appreciated, trust is gained, and loyalty is returned. So ladies and gentlemen, again, the Toastmasters organization still provides for me the greatest practical leadership training opportunity out there. I'm encouraged by the words of Benjamin Franklin, who said that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. So Madam Toastmaster, I trust now that fellow Toastmasters and any prospective members listening and online here this evening, I've whet your appetite to pursue more than just improved communication skills, but perhaps to make the leadership track a reality. Madam Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen.